First, let us know about John Rawls. John Rawls, or real name John Bordley Rawls, was born in Baltimore, Maryland on February 21, 1921. A well-known philosopher in political and moral philosophy. On our second discussion, we're going to talk about his greatest work, and that's the book of Theory of Justice. Now, as you can see, this is the book authored by John Rawls. In here Rawls attempts to solve the problem of distributive justice, the socially just distribution of goods in a society, by utilizing a variant of the familiar device of the social contract. The resultant theory is known as justice as fairness, from which Rawls derives his two principles of justice, the liberty principle and the difference principle. To continue, I will show you some videos that I have been researched to give you more details about the book of John Rawls. The following videos will explain to you the veil of ignorance, and first and the second principle.
Why hello. I'm John Rawls. Let's take a few minutes to understand a small part of my argument for distributive justice. In A Theory of Justice, I was concerned with developing a system that would ensure a just distribution of primary goods. Primary goods are things that any rational person would want, like rights, liberty, and money, and a just system is one that treats everyone fairly. To facilitate this, I focused on developing a procedure that would ensure all participants were guaranteed to be as well off as they possibly could be. I decided that the participants in my procedure needed to have certain characteristics. They must be rational, be motivated to follow moral principles, and adverse to risk. Knowing that people were also self-interested and motivated to promote their own interests, I knew that I had to find a way to make them consider the interests of others. After a much hard thinking, I developed the original position in the veil of ignorance. The original position is a hypothetical state of complete freedom and equality. The veil of ignorance is a theoretical device that makes people ignorant of things like their race, sex, class, background, intelligence, etc. The only things you know behind the veil of ignorance are that you and everyone else are rational, risk-adverse, capable of a sense of justice, and desire primary goods, although you don't know which specific primary goods you want. Let's really imagine what this is like. In the real world, you might be a wealthy white male who's incredibly educated and who's inherited millions of dollars. You are charged with considering the distribution of money that results from welfare. Of course, in the real world you don't need welfare and you don't particularly like it, since you have to give your tax dollars to it. But, now put yourself behind the veil of ignorance. If you didn't know that you were wealthy, and you knew there was a chance that you could really benefit from welfare, wouldn't it make sense to have it? Since you're risk-adverse, you wouldn't want to gamble on not having welfare, given that you know it would really help you if you were poor. Since I managed to find a way to ensure that people construct and consider fair principles to distribute goods, I was well on my way to developing the actual principles of justice. You can learn about my principles of justice in many of my readings, including Justice as Fairness and A Theory of Justice. Have fun.
Good afternoon, class. Today we will be talking about political philosophy and John Rawls. Rawls was focused on how to create a society that was just and fair.
What ideas did Rawls have to create a fair society?
Well, Rawls came up with the two principles of justice. The first being that everyone is entitled to basic freedoms, and the second is the difference principle.
What are basic freedoms and the difference principle?
Basic freedoms are things like freedom of speech, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as well as the fair value of political liberties. That is, citizens similarly endowed and motivated should have the same opportunities to hold office, to influence elections, and so on, regardless of their social class. The difference principle is meant to show there can be inequality within society as long as it makes the worst person better off. Financial inequalities are meant to help society as a whole. Rawls then created a thought experiment called the original position to support his principles. Which is, if there were representatives from society who were behind a veil of ignorance, the veil being that they don't know where they will end up in society. For example, they won't know if they will be rich or poor, smart or unintelligent. So if you didn't know these things, you would most likely choose the principles fairest to all.
In conclusion, three major topics of interest and importance in Rawls' A Theory of Justice are the theoretical concept of the veil of ignorance and the implications of the original position, the difference principle and distribution in society, and the concept of liberty and the role of individuals' rights in society. Rawls' use of these concepts has formed a solid foundation for the criticism and debate of justice in society that cannot be ignored. Again, this is me, Paul Edward. Thank you for watching.